in all my assignments, I understand that applying critical thinking into research is the primary requirement over here in the UK. Can you shed some light on what is critical thinking and how to incorporate critical thinking into research?
Okay, it's very easy. What do you think being critical means?
I think it's evaluating different sources, thinking about the positives and negatives, and giving our opinion finally based on our analysis.
Yeah. So giving your opinion is going to depend on what what stage you're studying at. So at the undergraduate level, we wouldn't expect anyone to provide their own opinion because that's just opinion. And they're not sort of qualified enough to give their opinion. But at the master's projects, dissertations, and all of that, we do value students' own opinions. Coming back to your question, is critical thinking is basically exactly what you've said. So again, I'll stay with the same example so that it's easier for students to understand. Again, we were talking about charismatic leadership, for example. Okay, I have identified an episode in my workplace where I think I acted in a very positive, charismatic way. I was able to create an influence. But now I'm thinking, is it really as good as I'm posing it to be? Are there competing perspectives for charismatic leadership? So for example, some research says charismatic leaders can be narcissistic. So am I being a narcissist by saying I was, so welcomed or so admired in that workplace? So that's where you're bringing in, and then you check, okay, what element of that could be, narcissistic, and how do I address it? So that's, and of course that's one of the limitations or one of the criticisms against charismatic leadership theory. And so you bring that in, you refer it. You don't just bring it in because you have read about it somewhere. You refer it from an academic source, and then you debate on it. You go back 2 steps, come back a step. You say, yes, maybe narcissism is there as a critique of charismatic leadership, but because I did this, and this, this is not narcissistic. I was a genuine person. I was extending genuine help. I was able to understand the feelings of the other person in the situation. I was being empathetic, so that means I wasn't being a narcissistic. And all of these things that you have said, you have to. This is one thing that students need to understand. You have to sort of back all of your statements with with literature, basically. Like academic literature, you refer it, only then it's a term called academic integrity. Only then your work has academic integrity. You wouldn't necessarily fail if you don't do that, but you get a higher grade when you have brought in and presented evidence of that level of thinking.
Okay, thank you so much for enlightening us with what is critical thinking. So that will help our viewers, our students who are coming to the UK through Dream Study UK to understand critical thinking better and ask questions to Dr. Iram, if any.
The first thing that I would advise students to do is go through their assignment brief. Sometimes you get assignments that are completely different from what the assignment brief states. And if you look at your assignment brief, it will tell you how much percentage of the marks are being allocated to, for example, analysis and evaluation, grammar, punctuation and structure, referencing. So we mark against that criteria, right? You may have presented a really good piece of work in your opinion, but you have not referenced it, you will lose 10% of the marks straight away. Right? So look at your assignment briefs. Then the second thing is look at your assignment questions, and my suggestion would be to start structuring. If it's a 3,000 word assignment, start structuring them according to the questions or whatever guidelines, whatever pointers you have in that. And one thing that I don't think students coming from our part of the world over here pay much attention to is the learning outcomes. Your assignment should achieve the learning outcomes for the module. It should be a presentable evidence that you have actually understood whatever the module was supposed to teach you. And that's what we check when we are marking an assignment. Were the questions answered? Were the learning outcomes met? And was the sort of breakdown of structure that we had presented them in that brief, was that followed? And unfortunately, a lot of assignments that come to us, it appears that the students have not even bothered to look at the assignment brief, or only looked at it very superficially, the first few If it's 3 pages long, I know it can be a pain to sort of read through it, but it's there to help you make sure. We don't derive any sort of statistic satisfaction from failing students, right? We want them to pass, but then they have to sort of do their bit.
Okay, so look at your evaluation criteria and also learning outcomes of the module in order to get a high score in your academics. That's what Dr. Iram says, and I hope this helps you a lot when writing your assignments.
Yeah. And please proofread and check for grammar mistakes.
That's great.
That's justify your work. Use a standard font. Use a standard color. Don't give half of your assignment in red font and the other half in black, because that's literally what students do. Justify it so it looks professional, not with sentences ending anywhere on the page. These may seem like very minute things, but look, I mean, just imagine I'm a person who's reading an assignment of 3,000 words, and at any given point in time I would have probably 50 assignments to mark for 3,000. How much is that's 150,000 words that I have to mark, and that's a big responsibility, because I'm going to determine whether the student goes for a resit or gets a first or whatever. And you give me an assignment that has 3 different fonts within it, and it's not justified, so it's visual overload on my senses. You haven't kept, we have 1.5 line spacing is standard, and students would give the assignments with 1. The reason with 1.5 is that it's easier to read, and students don't do that. So immediately you're sort of putting us off with your work, and then there's grammatical errors, there's non-academic use. So in your assignment, if you say this is not, you write this is not, you write this isn't, right? So these are the small little tweaks that you have to make sure that you have addressed. So proofread your assignment before you submit it.
Thank you so much, and cosmetic look of the assignment is all.